part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Sabol Brothers on the Baseline podcast, part of the Press Play Podcast Network. I'm one of your hosts, Scott Sabol.
And I'm the other one, John Sabol. How you guys doing? Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, so this is going to be a fun one. I know all of them are fun, but this gentleman we have on here, Michael Reghi, when you hear him, if you're a longtime listener to any Cleveland sports, especially the Cavs over the last, 25, 30 years, you'll immediately recognize his voice. If you don't hear him a lot, maybe on the radio now, when you hear his voice, you go, oh, I remember that guy. Oh, I know where I was when he called that game for the Cavs back in the 90s. We're going to talk with Michael Reghi, talk about his career. We're going to talk about what he's up to.
Yeah, Michael Reghi was a guy of my youth, Scott, growing up in Cleveland, listening to so many legendary broadcasters, the Cavs, Indians, and Browns. He was a guy, that when he was doing the Cavs when I was in elementary school and throughout high school and college, early parts of LeBron's years, and really, really connected with on a lot of different levels. And it's funny, we're going to go into his broadcasting career. People don't realize, I knew this just because knowing the background of him, but a lot of kids my age, in the early mid 30s don't remember or know that he worked in Cleveland before that. And then also that he juggled the Cavs job with the Orioles job. He was the play-by-play man for the Orioles and Cavs for a total of 7 years, overlapping there too in the 90s, and got to witness a lot of those great 90s Indians teams. Right. We'll get into that too. Also, hopefully we can dive into some LeBron stories.
Right. Oh, absolutely. And then talk about, current Guardians, current Browns, and then we'll kind of go from there.
And our interview with Michael Reghi is coming up right after this.
Hey everybody, it's Sam Amico from Cavs on the Break NBA podcast. Be sure to give us a listen for all your Cleveland Cavaliers recaps, analysis, breakdowns, draft talk, free agency. The list goes on and on. Give us a listen, Cavs on the Break NBA podcast.
What's up, everyone? Chase Smith here, host of the Chase Smith podcast, and my podcast reflects who I am. My hobbies, my interests, my passions, my curiosities, my careers, my questions, and my family. I'll spend time talking about all types of sports, movies, TV shows, trending news stories, and other cultural events, and even faith. This is who I am, and I hope I can get to know you as well. Join me on the Chase Smith podcast, and let's have some thought-provoking conversations, only on the Press Play Podcast Network.
Hey everyone, this is Mike Voorhees.
And I'm Brian Shaw. No, not the pitcher. We're the Guardians of the Land MLB podcast, formerly a Swing and a Tribe.
Don't have time to watch 162 games of baseball? We do. We have you covered with recaps of the games, stats, and analysis throughout the MLB season.
Subscribe now to Guardians of the Land and Press Play Pods for all your Cleveland sports analysis.
Cavaliers by 3. Sean Kemp to crash it down. Oh, yeah. And one more coming from the line as the Rain Man took it strong to the bucket. James with a rip away. LeBron in full flight. Flight number 23 exploded off the runway. And one coming. What a virtuoso performance from the megastar in wine and gold. Here's Albert Bell. Fly ball. Deep right center. Salmon. See you later. He's done it again. The third time today for Albert Bell. James for 3. Get it. LeBron James burying the tray. And Brady Anderson has just crushed Supan. See you later. Again the 3-2. Line drive, base hit left field. Can you say instant win, Orioles? He's done it yet one more time. Cal Ripken delivering in the bottom of the 11th. Whoa! Flight number 23 with takeoff and touchdown in Salt Lake City. And one coming on that Jazz foul. LeBron James just putting on spellbinding offensive moves tonight.
Welcome back, everybody. Our guest, you'll recognize his voice, I guarantee you. He was the TV voice of the Cleveland Cavaliers from 1993 to 2006. He was the television voice of the Baltimore Orioles from 97 to 2003. You've heard him on Fox Sports Ohio back in the day, which became Sports Time Ohio, MAC basketball games, Cleveland Gladiators games. He's even done some work for the NFL Network. On top of all that, and one of the big inspirations for my brother and I starting our podcast was his podcast that he has with Reghi Roda. It's called Reghi and Roda right here on Press Play Podcast, on the Press Play Podcast Network. Join us and we welcome the longtime sports broadcaster that everyone's heard over the years, Michael Reghi. Michael, it's a pleasure to have you on our show. How are you?
Sabol Brothers. Great to be with you guys always. John Scott, a pleasure to be sure. And let's have some fun, man. Let's get it all rolling.
So tell us a little bit about yourself. Where did you grow up?
Born and raised in Detroit, Michigan. My father was a Detroit vice cop, so I had, the family had to, stay off those mean streets. But no, I was born and raised on those mean streets and those playgrounds, and I take a great deal of pride in that, fellas. I love it. I wouldn't have had it any other way. I think when you grow up in a large city, in a metropolis like that, and when I was growing up in the 60s and early 70s, Detroit was the fifth largest city in the country with over 3 million people. And like I said, I grew up in the city, not in the suburbs. So, yeah, I mean, look, I feel it is a lot of who I am and what I am. And, it was tremendous, and I enjoyed it. And that's why in coming to Cleveland, guys, I came to Cleveland in the fall of 1983 at WEWS, Channel 5, with the first Gibb Shanley and then Nev Chandler, as I was a weekend sports anchor for 3 years with both of those gentlemen. And there's just so much similarity to, again, Cleveland, Detroit, how I grew up. I'd say that's probably a big reason why I'm still here today, because of those similarities and how much that, just two great, if I may say, blue collar American cities that to me work hard and do it the right way.
Yeah, you get a lot of Cleveland, Detroit, even Indianapolis, Chicago, Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh, sure. Yeah.
People like to call them the Rust Belt cities or whatever, but there is this, attitude and grit and something that's in our blood that everyone else in the country may not have. I know.
I agree with you. Couldn't agree with you more, John. And
I think all three of us have that.
I do. I agree with you too. I know you guys have it. And, it just kind of it becomes who you are, and like I said, I wouldn't have it any other way. Just so much about life I learned, and I went away to college. I went to Arizona State, but look, to me, I did my 4 years. I got my degree, and I came back here. I came back to the Midwest today. The first television job in wonderful Lima, Ohio. I think at the time it was about, there were at the time, and again, this is the late 70s, so there's maybe 206 or 7 television markets. Scott, you probably know better about that than me, but it was like 203, 204. It was one of the smallest markets in the country. When I do go out and tell young people, I still enjoy going to, whether it's universities, what have you, universities to talk to broadcasting majors, right? And we know, and again, listen, this is fantastic. And I've so many, it seems to me, you guys could correct me if I'm wrong, so many in, let's say in the last 10, 15 years, young people get out of, with a broadcasting degree, journalism degree, and get opportunities to say they grew up in Cleveland. Well, they might get a chance to start here in Cleveland.
Right.
I can assure you, gentlemen, when I got out of college, it was not that way.
Right.
If I would have went to Detroit or one of the stations here in Cleveland in 1976 and said, hey, here I am, man, I'm ready to, they would have said, yeah, Reghi, we'll see how it goes. We'll see in about 10 years. Come back and talk to us in about 10. Exactly, right? And again, I say that with no contention. I'm thrilled for all the young people that get those opportunities to start in major markets. Say one thing to them. You better work your ass off and be good, though. You better be good, because if you're not, it's going to show and you won't stay there long. So I'm glad I came up, started a small market and came up that way. But again, that's the way it was in the late 1970s. You had no other choice. I mean, you could do that or, I don't know about you guys. I used to have a lot of my buddies, buddies that were your teammates, high school teammates, football, whatever. Hey, Reg, man, oh, yeah, come on, man. Oh, by the way, I made 10,200 in Lima. Now, I'm a television sports anchor, and I made 10,200. It's all my buddies were saying, come on, man. They're whether it's for the beer companies, whatever, at the time, the cigarette companies, but they're, get jobs with a company car, an expense account. Come on, Reg, what are you doing, man? You can, we can get you a job and you make $24,000 a year. What are you doing making $10,000 a year? But not, we all, you two know that, when your passion is somewhere, and that's something that you want to get accomplished. And I'm glad I didn't go along with a lot of my buddies and former teammates and join them in their professional beginnings. So, but everything happens for a reason, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And we all know about how that the climb to the broadcast ladder, we both, worked in small markets and came up, and the business has changed so much where a lot of kids out of school can be hired in these, markets like a Cleveland or a Detroit, in some cases, even network now, which is like unheard of when even, 15 years ago when I first started kind of getting into this whole thing. Mm-hmm. Hey, before we get into your start of broadcasting, I know you mentioned Lima, Reg. Yep. When you were growing up in Detroit, I'm just curious, what sports did you play there?
Well, the three main, a little bit with hockey too, because hockey, the D, the Red Wings, a big spot. But mostly then when I got into being able to play junior high and high school, it was baseball, football, basketball. And so loved it, loved playing all three. Mm-hmm. Again, this is Detroit. So I was, hopeful that, I was a good player. And I was hopeful that Bo Schembechler had come in, and that's what I wanted to do. But Bo didn't like guys who were, it's funny too, because he was a two-sport player at Miami, but he didn't like guys that were like, Reghi, you're more of a baseball player. So, it didn't work, but again, just a fabulous way to grow up and being able to play, the three major team sports like that. And I went to a high school, guys, Cass Tech, that has turned out a lot of, down through the years, a lot of strong college and NFL, NBA talent. And, there were 6,000 kids in the high school.
Wow.
So, if you got on the field or got on the court there, it was good. You were doing something positive.
What position did you play in baseball?
In baseball, I was a third baseman, Scott, but then I got switched over to first base. Okay. And, wanted to play in the corners in baseball, but, I think I was like you. I've seen some of your, man, I was all about swinging the bat. I just loved to, swing the bat and hit, because it was like, you swing the bat and you swing it well and can be productive hitting in a lineup, they're going to get you in the lineup. Right. And this was, now that guys was before the DH.
Yes.
That's how old I'm getting. When I was in high school, there was no DH yet.
Right. Yeah, all your pitchers had to bat no matter what.
Exactly. That's correct. Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, how was it working with Nev Chandler and Gib Chanley? I say this only because I never met Nev Chandler because he passed away right before I got into the business. And I only spoke with Gib on the phone a couple of times when he would call Mr. Goddard at the station. And at that time he had already was retired and, it was right before he passed away. But how was it to work with those guys back in the heyday?
Just tremendous. Absolutely tremendous. Now, two very different individuals in the way they approached sports anchoring at that time. And remember, guys, now we're talking ESPN had just started.
Right.
Now we're talking about here the early 80s, into the mid 80s. So ESPN had just started. So there wasn't this, this just plethora of opportunity for everybody. But so I come in and, I'm the weekend sports anchor at WEWS. And Dorothy Foldheim told me, where do you live? And I said, well, because I got a little place in West Park, when I came here to Cleveland for the first time. And she said, good, because you don't make enough money to live over where I do. And furthermore, we don't want your kind over on the east side. And I was like, well, okay. This is the grand dame of, so yeah, it was Don Webster that took me in to see her in her palatial corner office there on 30th and Euclid, filled with just bouquets of flowers. This was a normal Tuesday, Tuesday in November.
Yeah, holiday for her, right?
But Dorothy was something else. But Gib and then Nev, I have just such a great deal of respect for both of them. As I said, they were very different, and of course, we lost Neville way too soon. But he at kind of like me. I think Nev at heart always, he began calling the Indians on the radio. I mean, he was Nev's weekend. He was Gibbs' weekend sports anchor at Channel 5 for many years.
Right. And
then he got the opportunity he wanted to call play-by-play. So got the opportunity to call the Indians on the radio. And then, as we know, so I had, I was 2 years in as a weekend sports anchor. And that's when Gibbs said, guys, that there was this great opportunity that had come up for him in Los Angeles. He was going to do the Rams and also do some, at the time, California Angels baseball.
Wow.
And so Gibb had left, and that's when, they felt, and of course, now I'm not going to tell you that, of course, I'm hoping to be named the main sports anchor. I'm, more than 2 years in as a weekend guy, but I completely understood it when they, so Gibb he leaves, and then Nev becomes the radio voice of the Cleveland Browns, as we know, and then replaced who he had done weekends for, Gibb at Woos at Channel 5. So again, just two wonderful men, and it's it deeply saddened me and the loss of both of them. But especially Nev, who just I think he was 52 years old.
Yeah, he wasn't old at all. No, he was
no, and it's just so sad, but. What a tremendous heart. If there was anybody that was, I think, ever, you talk about epitomizing Cleveland to me. I told her that Nev Chandler epitomized the city of Cleveland, everything about it, and everything in the sports genre, too. He was a special broadcaster and a special man.
Yeah, he was born and raised in Cleveland, was he not? Lakewood?
Rocky River.
Rocky River.
Rocky River. He went to Rocky River High School. John.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Went to Rocky River High, and I think he then was Cleveland State is where he went to college, I believe. And like I said, and then, got the opportunity to, so he gets an opportunity to be Gib Shanley's weekend sports, anchor at, Gib did the weekdays, Nev did the weekends. And like, as I just went through, rest is history, but really appreciated them both. Again, this is what we do, be honest. I mean, Nev was, much more outgoing and gregarious and what have you. Gib was more, I'm going to tell you what I want you to do. Had that cigarette hanging out of his mouth with his feet up on the desk. I'm going to tell you what I want you to do, Reghi, and you damn well better deliver it, period. I don't hear no excuse. That was Gib. But I love that about him, too. And he also was calling the Browns on radio at the time that I came in. And, like I just said, I think more, maybe you got to be of a certain age, but, fellas, Gib was damn good as an NFL play-by-play guy on the radio. Damn good. They both were. I just think that Nev probably, again, with the younger folks.
Sure.
I think that he's a little bit more known for his Brian. You get more Gib went through some very lean years too. The Browns weren't very good in a lot of the years that Gib was calling them. And, I found out how that can be as a play-by-play guy in my 14 years doing the Cavaliers. There were times it wasn't real good. So, it's, it's different, a little bit different. But now those two guys had a distinct impression upon me. And I've always felt just so blessed, honored to have worked with both of them, legendary sports broadcasters here in Cleveland. And that'll always mean a great deal to me.
Yeah, let's get into your Cavs era here in just a moment. But the one question, Reg, that I've always wondered this, and this is as a kid who grew up with you, and grew up with some of the other broadcasters, and there's been endless of them here in the Cleveland area. But the one question I have for you, because how did you somehow, balance broadcasting the Orioles in the 90s and broadcast the Cavs at the same time? Because you did both for 7 years, I believe.
Yeah, 7 years together. That's right. Right, John, 13 years with the 16 years, really. The first 3 years with the Cavaliers, that was with the on the cable side. It was Sports Channel then.
I remember that.
You guys remember that?
Yeah.
And that came on
the red and blue stripes.
Yeah, very good. 1990. So my first 3 years, I was the pregame, halftime, postgame host of the Cavaliers on Sports Channel. Denny Schreiner did the play.
I remember them. Sure.
Yep.
He was also Denny was big bowling. He called bowling, regionally and nationally, and he got an opportunity to enhance that, and he added golf to it as well down in Florida. So he left, and I'm very very fortunate, very pleased, and that they went with me as a play-by-play guy. But yeah, so 16 years overall. 13 years calling play-by-play, and I feel it, really put a big kind of oomph, into. There's always one of the same things I was saying about Nev. I always, you start, and I wound up anchoring, as a sports anchor, guys, my first 9 years, out of college in the business, a sports anchor. So, but always with the thought on, when I get the opportunity, I'm going to, make sure I hope to be able to give the play-by-play a shot, because I felt I would be successful at it.
And it's very hard to go from anchoring sports to doing play-by-play. I mean, before I got into the business, seeing that, as an outsider, you're thinking, oh, this is no big deal. And then you get in there and you're like, whoa, wait a minute. It would be equivalent to me doing weather and then me having to read a teleprompter to do news. It looks like it's the same, but it's two totally different animals. And to switch gears like that, did it take you a long time to switch to just change that mindset?
Well, I hope not, Scott. You're 1,000,000% correct, though. And I say this without you take me out of the equation. I'm not talking about anything, we take me right out of it. But yeah, so I've always, a lot of very good sports anchors in our business, but certainly totally different animal when you're out there calling a game, whatever sport. So yeah, it is different. To me, it's in the sports genre. I think it's in broadcasting. It's the most difficult to be successful at ultimately. And and I always said, I hope this isn't too just trite, but no, because there are no scripts. There are no scripts. Like I said, my first 9 years I anchored in the business, but you're working off a script you're the one, you're the one that's, putting your sportscast together, but it's just so totally different. But, it's something I always wanted to do. Like I said, that goes back to, growing up as a kid in Detroit. So, blessed to get the opportunity, and I'm very thrilled too that it happened here in Cleveland, and it is something that worked for me and made me want to stay here in this market. But yeah, I mean, and being able to do multiple sports as I've done is just has been a tremendous blessing. I'm humbled by it and always will be.
Did you call Cal Ripken's 3,000th hit game?
I did.
How was that?
I did. Well, that was a very special moment, of course, I think, when you a guy who's become they both have. Cal, I consider a friend, but became a very dear friend was Eddie Murray, and Eddie was the first base coach that night.
Right.
Yeah.
And when Cal ripped that base hit up the middle in the to me, hey, 3,000 hits, that's fantastic. Unfortunately, it came in that old damn baggie, that Metrodome up in Minneapolis. Yeah, but Cal Ripken, he just the epitome of everything professionally great about the game of baseball and sports in general.
Had a chance to meet him. He came to the station maybe 12 years ago.
Okay.
And so he was here promoting whatever he was promoting. And I remember I had a chance. I wanted to shake his hand. How you doing? Two things struck me about him. His hands are huge.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm like, whoa, now I see how like quarterbacks have big hands. The other thing was and I've noticed this with athletes, and my brother can probably speak on this more than me, but there was this brewing intensity behind him, like this intensity, meaning if he could still physically go out and play and you asked him to play, he'd be out there in 5 seconds. He's that competitive fire. You can just tell behind his demeanor.
You're right. The ultimate competitor, the ultimate winner, and someone who, if you were looking or wanted, to pick a player to emulate in whatever sport, I think that's a pretty good one to hang the banner up with, because, like I said, to me, he, and to be able to. Love to be, I had to, for those eight down at the cage. He retired in 2003, but every day down at the cage, and pregame, and when he's taking BP and what have you, and he was always gracious with his time, would talk to you about not just baseball, whatever it is that you want to talk about. As for, if anything as an aside to be able to discuss about regarding Cal during the game that night. He was terrific. And to me, again, one of the tremendous ambassadors of their sports ever is Cal Ripken.
One question about Cal Ripken that I've always wondered, when you look back at his career, Reg, and you look at what he did way before my time as a shortstop growing up and then moved to third. And I don't think, and Scott was the big influence on me of showing me old highlights and educating me on older players growing up. To me, I think he's a guy that gets overlooked a little bit only because the Iron Man streak hovers over him more so than his play and his stats. Would you agree?
Yeah, and I think another thing, guys, too, during that period, then there was, as Cal was starting to, let's say we get into the 2000s, and Cal is starting to wind down a little bit. Derek Jeter, Nomar Garcia-Parra, Ozzie Smith, guys, Cal was 6'5", 230 pounds. So he was during that period, you didn't see shortstops that size in the early 80s, fellas, when he came up, or even on into the 90s.
Yeah, Ozzie Smith. I mean, that's who you remember, somebody like that.
Ozzie Smith, Gary Templeton, those kind of guys. And I mentioned Jeter, of course. Now, Derek was 6'2", and then Nomar Garcia-Parra, about 6'1". But Cal, I think Cal was the one, to me, who he transitioned the position that, yes, you don't have to be. I grew up, there was the shortstop with the Detroit Tigers. The Tigers were very good teams, as you know, in the 60s. A guy by the name of Ray Euler hit about 140 every year, was about 5'9", 140 pounds. Just like, if they could have hit him 10th, they would have hit him 10th in the 9-man lineup.
Reminds me of Dick Schofield. Remember Dick Schofield played for the Angels? You look at his numbers and I go, how did this guy even play in the big leagues?
There you go.
There's no way he'd play today.
No, you're right, Scott. And that's a great point. And now that era, I'd say it started with Cal. I mean, Cal came up in 1982, but it started with him. Now, when the 90s rolled around, now it's almost, well, you're a shortstop. Oh, well, you got to swing the bat a little bit too. You can't just be a good field, no hit guy. Right. And that's, like I said, I always, and of course, in his humble way, I said, Cal, man, you're the guy that kind of hatched, so that you hatched Garcia Parra, you hatched Jeter. Even Ozzie Smith, who did not, was not a guy that was home run hitter any kind. Garcia Parra, Jeter, those guys, they could hit home runs. They could hit 20, 25 bombs a year. And Cal was a guy that I think changed the way the thinking, Scott, went about the position offensively.
Two-part question for you, Reg.
Mm-hmm.
One, you got the front row seat during the 90s with the Orioles watching those Indians teams.
Yeah.
They didn't win the World Series, obviously.
Right.
But one, when you look at that team, what really strikes you as something that you remember the most about them? And then you look at this current Cleveland team, completely different makeup. But as we record this here on May 10th, they are playing really well. What's your outlook on them? So go back to 90s Indians and current Guardians.
The 90s Indians, probably for that, I'm going to say 5-year stretch, maybe 6, 94 through 99, was maybe the best collective offensive hitting everyday group that I would put them right there. I'm not going to go way back to the dead ball era, with those Yankee teams, but in the modern era, that group 1 through 9 every day offensively, I think you can put them in a place. You pick your best, what you feel is your best offensive hitting baseball teams. They're there. I mean, they were absolutely amazing. They'd bludgeon you to death. It's not that they, we know they could pitch. They pitched with Denny Martinez and Oral Hershiser and that group. But man, there were games they struck fear in other opposing pitching staffs daily. I mean, it's like, oh my God, we're going to get torched for 12.
Manny Ramirez
today?
hit 7th.
He hit 7th, Scott. Yeah. That's right. When he came up, Eddie Murray was, a part of that group. In a couple of years, he played with the Indians. And of course, to me, and I got a chance to see him, every day for 3 years with the Baltimore Orioles. Roberto Alomar, Robbie Alomar, just one of the truly great hitters. Never thought he got maybe ultimately his due as but a complete player, of course, tremendous second baseman fielder, but Robbie Alomar could swing the bat now. And I mean, so that group that they had, I mean, every day was just incredibly amazing as a talent of a hitting offense as you're going to find in the game.
So I got one more baseball question for you, and
yes,
then we'll
sir.
jump into the Cavs and the Browns. Okay. And you and I have talked about this. I think it was on Twitter a couple of years ago. And I like to look at the numbers. I'm a big numbers guy, and you try to compare eras and all the analytics and all that. And one of the big things with baseball has been, just like any sport, they're using more data. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that as long as you can apply it. But baseball, as you know, even with all this data, it's changed in the last 8 to 10 years. Basically, baseball has become a 3-outcome sport, just like basketball and football has become more, I would call it more efficient, if you will. Do you think baseball, compared to what it was more than 10 years ago with this efficiency 3-out, do you think it's gone too far?
Yeah, I do, Scott. But again, listen, I'm sure I'll say, well, Reghi, you're way too old school now, and you're becoming a curmudgeon, and then that's cool. But no, to answer your question, I do. Yes. To me, I love the guy. Charlie Manuel was one of them. I love the guys around Major League Baseball back in the Charlie. The hitting coaches used to love to talk to them. There was a guy when I was doing the Orioles. His name was Terry Crowley. Remember him? He was an outfielder with the Orioles and a real good left-handed hitter. So to me, I still think you guys, especially you, Scott, you remember the Ted Williams book, The Science of Hitting?
I got it sitting right here on my desk.
Do you really?
Absolutely, sure.
Love it, man. You're my hero. That thing, man, I had to tape it up a million times back in the day because, to me, that is, you want to talk about, well, Ted Williams wasn't using any analytics. His analytics were just in his mind between his ears and how he looked at each individual pitcher and what game plan he went up to the plate with. So to me, that is kind of the lost art in terms of how you hit. I get it. Everybody's analytics driven. Everybody's got the numbers, but I prefer the Ted Williams Science of Hitting way from back in the day, fellas.
Yeah, Ted Williams. It's funny. There's this baseball Twitter account. I think it's there's just so many. Scott, you may know what it is. It was I want to say like baseball or. I don't know which one it is. I have to look it up. But they had a overhead slow-mo video of Ted Williams in like 47.
Oh, I've seen that. It's like a camera up here. Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah, of his
I know.
swing.
Yes, I've seen that too. And the arc of the swing.
Yes,
the arc of that. Yes.
Mm-hmm. And it's like, I go back to the old acronym of KISS: keep it simple, stupid. It was such a simple thing to do in hit and swing. And his swing was so simple and perfect.
And you know what? One thing Ted Williams did, which I think holds up today, is that in that book he mentioned you want to hit with a slight uppercut. You want to create backspin on the ball to hit the ball in the air. And it's like, well, that's the part that now this is what players do all the time.
Yes,
they're not hitting the ball on the ground; they're hitting the ball in the air above the shift.
Right. Everybody, when they were little, you got to have a level swing, son.
Yep.
No.
Yep.
No.
Right.
That's right. The best swing is, as you just pointed out, Scott, is that slight uppercut to your swing.
And Scott, tell Reg, that's how we were growing up, like in the backyard with Dad.
Oh, it's level swing.
You'd always say level swing, but I always naturally had an uppercut swing.
Right.
And see, Scott, I was doing it right the whole time.
Right. There you go.
Perfect. Yes, you were.
Oh, good times. Hey, real quick, before the next question, I can't get you off without having that second part. What do you think of the Guardians now and their outlook the rest of the year?
Well, speaking of hitting, I'm pretty impressed the way that these guys are swinging the bats. Last night, again with Josh Naylor, I think my darling girlfriend Patty's favorite Guardian, Josh Naylor. She's all the time, watch, he's going to be big time. Okay, all right, man. She's got something going with him. But yeah, I what do we play? Well, how many games have they played? 29, 28, 29.
It's still way early.
I agree. It is. There's no question it's still way early. That having been said, if you were going to ask me, would some of these Guardians be swinging the bats as effectively as they are? I would say no way. I mean, and again, remember they have been able to overcome the two guys who were expected to be big components. Now, I never agree with that because to me, neither Bobby Bradley or Yu Chang are consistent major league hitters or will ever be consistent major league hitters. That's me. But they were one of the everyday nine to begin the season, both of them, and neither one of them is now. So, I mean, I really like Owen Miller a lot. I love the way, Scott, he swings the bat. I mean, he's hitting well over 300, has a little bit of pop. Stephen Kwan, I mean, who knew that this young man was going to come out and be able to have the capability to be a table setter the way he is. Jose Ramirez, this is one of the best hitters in the game. He's cooled off a little bit recently. He's down under 300 a little bit now, but I think guys, maybe that's 30 games, like you said, but I think maybe they got a shot to be able to hang in offensively. And as we know, the area, the Indians, very strong starting pitching, right, and a pretty good bullpen. Well, the starting pitching hasn't been all that strong in these first 30 games. So I mean, you got to hope that Plesac and Savali are able to pick it up. And I mean, Shane Bieber hasn't been right in his first 5 or 6 starts. It isn't the quality performances you'd expect every night from Shane Bieber. So, hey, listen, they got a shot. Hang in. Minnesota, I still think Chicago is going to be heard from in the division. But if they can keep swinging the bats, and it may not be as productive as it is currently through the course of a whole season, but if they could keep swinging the bats and keep themselves offensively, maybe, in that middle to top half of the American League, guys, who knows? Maybe it'll be a real fun summer here in the AL Central.
So we're going to talk about Cavs, broadcasting the Cavs. I know you mentioned there were some lean years back during your time in the 90s and early 2000s. But can you think of a moment when you were broadcasting that sticks out in your mind, something memorable, during those days?
Oh, with the Cavs, you mean in the
Cavs,
early times with the Cavaliers before LeBron? I did LeBron's first 3 seasons here. So
so pre-LeBron.
Yeah, again, I know he's he's a dear friend and Mike Fratello, but I thought that Mike Fratello getting this organization to the playoffs a couple of years in the mid-late 90s. Again, now this was, with, Andre Miller, Derek Anderson, Michael Cage. They brought in my guy Dan Marley for a couple of years, right? Yeah. But again, I mean, and then in the late course, we talked about bringing in Sean Kemp, but I thought Mike Fratello did a masterful job with them because, remember they started out 0-7 and what year was that? Might have been probably 95, 96. And Fratello, and every game losing 142 to 123 because, again, they want to be able to push it, run up and down and be a high score. Well, they didn't have enough to do that against the better teams. So Mike said, listen, we're going to go the exact opposite direction. We're going to take the air out of the basketball because we can win 85-82 if we put a great emphasis on the defensive side of the floor. Right. And as we know, guys, in the NBA, for Fratello to be able to do that, and again, it's not like this was a million years ago. Again, okay, it's just in the 90s. So for you youngsters, no, it wasn't, the horse and buggy dark ages. But Fratello knew the only way we're going to have any success and win is do that. So he got that group of Cavalier players to buy in, play that way, and they turned it around and made the playoffs a couple of years in a row, playing that style.
And it paid off, too.
What? Was it very aesthetically pleasing for Cavs basketball fans and those little blue seats at Gund Arena? No, but they won. They won more than they lost and made the playoffs. So,
well, and it paid off too because they did go to the playoffs that first year. And when we had Fratello on the pod months ago, earlier in the Cavs season, he said that the current Cavs makeup in terms of roster, and Reg, I've talked to you about this before, reminded him of his late 90s teams when the Cavs were big with Kemp and Vitale and Z. And the Cavs were big now, and so it is very interesting how that's kind of cyclical because that's not how the current NBA is played. But,
true. And listen, Mike was tremendous at that. I don't feel that Mike has gotten his just. And again, with the Atlanta Hawks, very successful NBA head coach, didn't win a championship. But, his Atlanta teams had to deal back in the day. They had to deal with the Boston Celtics, the Detroit Pistons, and the New York Knicks.
Yeah.
But every win 50 plus every year and get in the playoffs, but ultimately couldn't beat one of those 3 I just mentioned during that period of time.
Yeah. Could you tell us, this is a loaded question, but could you tell us a quote podcast friendly Cavs story about LeBron in those early years that many people don't know about? And I'm talking like it could be anything from shoot around in a joke he said, or the personalities of LeBron with those Darius Miles and DeJuan Wagner teams, or maybe just like a conversation you and him had on the road sitting at breakfast or something? Like, is there anything in LeBron James's early years, because you were there with him, you had that front seat to, one of the greatest basketball players, career,
Well, John, again, it's not, but every day, and again, I feel comfortable in saying this. You mentioned a couple of names, Darius Miles, DeJuan Wagner, Chris Gatling, those type of guys. LeBron challenged the hell out of them every day. I mean, in mostly, shooting games in practice, whether it was shooting from while you're standing on the bench on the sideline, 3-point shooting, and of course the half court shooting. He basically told them all, you guys cannot hang with me, and I'm just going to make sure I make this indelibly clear to all of you every day that you guys are not anywhere near my level. But that was LeBron. He wasn't doing it in a way. It was just in his mind, it was looking to get them to become more like him in terms of his competitive nature, competitive genius, and a guy that he felt, well, you know what, I'm going to challenge the hell out of them every day then, so that these guys got to understand we're going to win or die trying every night. And that was something he did all the time. Like I said, every day, challenging them in some form of a basketball game, shooting game, a drill, something. And, you better believe he wanted to stick it to them all every day. Yeah.
I love it. Good stuff.
So what do you think the Cavs need? What do they need to make the playoffs next season? What's their glaring deficiency at this point when that they need to take care of?
Yeah, now assuming good health, I'd like to see them get possibly another a guy who can play the three and give you offensive production and punch every night. I know a lot of fans were kind of down on Karis LeVert. I'm not. I think Karis though is a 2. Okay, he's a 2. He's not a 3. He's a 2. So I don't know if you want to run out there every night with. I'm still thinking Jared Allen and Lauri Markkanen to go along with the main guy Evan Mobley. I don't know. I'd like to see maybe that they got some that great size, but I'd like to see them if they could bring in someone that could play that 3 and specifically hit. Be able to be a solid perimeter shooter, and that a guy that can give you 17 to 20 every night. Because, like I said, Karis LeVert's going to give you 15 or 16 every night. Some nights he'll give you that, but we see how these championship teams are. You want that other offensive weapon and to be able to play because you got it. Jared Allen and Evan Mobley. That's your rock, your foundation, I guess. I'd like to see Colin Sexton maybe if he would gets healthy, if he would come off the bench, guys, and maybe be that 6th man. And Colin, you can get all the shots you want, baby. We're going to start Garland and LeVert in the backcourt. That's the way I'd like to see it happen. I'm sure that a lot of Cavs fans don't agree with me on that, but I think that with Sexton coming off the bench, I think that might be the very best way for them to make the next move, given what we know is on that roster now, given the next move in the East.
Yeah, a lot of good questions going forward with this Cavs team heading into the summer with health, what to do with the lottery, and what to do with the draft, and any potential trades they make. Very intriguing going forward into 2022-2023 season. Hey, let's switch real quick before we go into rapid fire, Reg. I got to ask you, Browns. What was your thoughts on their draft class? They went 4 offensive, 4 defensive, and a kicker. Pretty balanced. You don't see very many balanced drafts like that. We had Bobby Carpenter on last week, and he raved a lot of picks that the Browns had. Really like what they did. Scott and I both like what they did. What say you?
Yeah, well, I'm glad that they went out and got, the guy I think that can be the premium kicker. You need it, man. You need it in a cold weather environment. You need it in the AFC North. So I think Cade York, the young man at LSU, is going to come in and hopefully can get that job solidified. I really like the selection of Perion Winfrey, guys. As someone I call a lot of college football, and so you're able to get tape with ESPN anytime I want. And I watched a lot of Winfrey at Oklahoma. Now he was, they played a 3-3-5 with the Oklahoma Sooners, so he was the nose a lot, over the center, between the center and the guard, but. I tell you what, I mean, I think he's got the skills that he can run well enough, to be able to be a big factor in helping the Browns on the interior against the opposition run game, fellas, because, I'll be honest, where they are right now on the interior, Jordan Elliott, right? Sheldon Day, Tommy Togiai, the young man from Ohio State. Hey, I'm all for giving young guys an opportunity, but right now none of them have shown that they're, quality. So I hope they get Jadeveon Clowney back, and maybe Perion Winfrey can come in as a rookie and be very, very successful. And I also really like the wide receiver from Purdue, David Bell. He's not a blazer, not at all. That's not what he is. But tremendous hands, and I think we've seen enough for him with 3 years playing against Big Ten competition that the guy's going to catch the football, and I think he's going to can be, if used properly, an asset to this offense.
Couldn't agree more with you about David Bell. I think his hands can really stand out in a way where they desperately need a guy who can catch the ball. It sounds simple, but we've seen their catching problems.
Well, and also, guys, I do think to me now, we know, Amari Cooper, who is now the number one, comes in from Dallas. But guys, and again, this is a whole nother story, so I hope I'm not, but we don't know how much Deshaun Watson's going to be able to play. But guys, I really believe, my thought is that Deshaun Watson is going to make Amari Cooper and Donovan Peoples-Jones specifically better, and David Njoku better, with him and his quarterback play and his ability to I've really been impressed with what he did. He didn't play last year, but with his receivers in his last 3 years of the Houston Texans. Mm-hmm. And I thought all of those guys got better and improved. And I think a lot of that is because of quarterback play. And I expect that to happen with the Cleveland Browns. I mean, that's what Deshaun Watson's being brought in here to do. And let's hope it pays those immediate dividends.
All right, let's get right to it. We're going to do our rapid fire questions. You guys
yes,
ready?
Sir.
All right. Your favorite road city visit, your favorite road city that you like to visit when you were doing a lot of traveling?
2, New York City and Seattle, Washington.
Interesting.
East Coast, West Coast. I like
yes,
it.
Sir. Right. Yes, sir.
Hey, outside of broadcasting in your career and currently now with ESPN doing MAC football and all the other stuff that you do, what are your hobbies, Reg?
Oh, hobbies. Gee, well, I guess the water and, being around the water. We go in the water and, whether it's jet ski or, swim, never really got into the jet, on skiing too much. But I would say that I'll be honest. Again, I haven't been a big hobby guy. I never had enough time to do it.
Yeah.
I guess I might, now that I have more time, I should start to come up with something a little bit better. So again, the lovely Patty has me working on that. Believe me.
I can imagine.
Yeah. She's got me working on that. Yeah.
What's your favorite 90s baseball and or basketball player you covered?
90s.
Yeah. So we're talking
90s favorite baseball player. I'm going to go with Eddie Murray. Mm-hmm. Baseball player and basketball player in the 90s. This we didn't mention. Let's be able to I love the guy, how hard he played. Bobby Sura.
Bobby Sura.
Yeah, as a Cavalier. Yeah. And then, he did
not
big things
expecting you to
too with
say
the
that.
Houston Rockets. Yeah.
I was not expecting you to say Bobby Sura. Wow.
Yeah, no, I love competitor, man. I just, that's how I just loved the way he compete, never back down. And he and Mike Fratello, they butted heads many a day, but that was, I think they have a mutual respect with one another too, that understands that both made the other one better. But yeah, I love Bobby Sura.
You've been in the Cleveland area now for decades. Favorite number one dinner spot? Where you go?
Oh, well, there's so many. I'm going to still go with Blue Point. Blue Point restaurant downtown. There are so many. I won't get you, but I'm going to go. I'm Blue Point.
All right. Blue Point.
All right. What's your TV show you're streaming right now, Michael?
TV show that I'm streaming right now. Let's see. All American. On the CW. I'd say that one. Okay. That one I'm streaming. Definitely. I've kind of taken a liking to that. Yeah.
So you're a man who's covered all three sports, broadcasted them. There's got to be one rule in all three sports, baseball, basketball, football, that annoys you or you don't like. Tell me what it is, and you change it.
I still want to be able to work. John.
All right. So
okay, maybe you can't answer that question.
Maybe you can't.
No. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Like for me, like it doesn't have to be a realistic goal.
I get it.
Like for me, it'd be, I wish baseball had a salary floor or a salary cap. It's not realistic. Something silly or something.
I'm gonna take it to the game. I don't like the. I don't like the. I don't know. I don't want to call it. To me, football, the NFL and college football, the ability to hit, to me, to be a defensive player, to hit has been, the quarterbacks are protected way too much for my liking. This comes from a guy who was a defensive player too, though. So, you got to understand it. But I think especially in Division I college football, like I said, that I call and the NFL, to me, they've taken away with some of the rules, the ability for defensive players to be able to really hit and ply their craft because of penalty flags flying around too much.
And do you think the Browns make the playoffs next year?
I do. And that's not a homer thing. I like I just said, I really think Deshaun Watson is going to be worth it. But the only caveat, guys, is he going to be suspended this year, or are they carrying it over into 23? Well, we don't know that yet. I'll say if Deshaun Watson doesn't get suspended for more than 4 games this year, yeah, I'll say they got a shot. Now, if that happens, though, everything's off the table there. If he's down 6-8 games, it's going to be a tough do, even though, I like bringing in Jacoby Brissett as his backup.
All right, bonus question real quick. We talked about LeBron. You gave us a great LeBron story. You covered LeBron. You covered Jordan. In your opinion, out of those two guys, who is the GOAT?
Oh, John Sabol.
I had to ask you that question.
I guess it depends. I'm going to go Michael Jordan.
Ooh, okay.
Yep, I'm going to go Jordan because to me, and again, you can to me, when you are that type of player, winning is the ultimate. That's what sets so many of them apart. Charles Barkley was a phenomenal player, right? As a number one, never won anything. So to me, I'm going to go with Jordan over James because of the ultimate winning category.
So this is funny, Scott, because we need to have Reg back on at some point, because this is an entire podcast episode of a friendly debate of that, because we could go a long time about how we all three differ or agree on that.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. No one's right or wrong, but
that's what makes it great.
That's what makes it great. And that is the topic of conversation for the last 5 years.
Yeah.
In the NBA circles. And for someone like you, who we value your opinion and your professionalism, we needed to hear what you value in terms of evaluating someone like that.
Yeah. And how many championships has LeBron won? Is it 4? 2 in Miami, 1
4,
here,
yeah.
1 in that bubble with the Lakers. Is that not
yeah,
correct?
yeah,
So
that's
4. Jordan 1, 6. So again, it's that's tough. I would say if you're over 50 years of age, or maybe even 45-ish or so, you might want to say Jordan slightly over James. And if you're under that, you might go with James. Do you think that's fair?
I think that's
or
fair,
has any substance? What do you think, Scott?
Absolutely. I would definitely agree. I mean, I never liked Jordan growing up because of what he did, but I respect him. And yeah, I got to go with Jordan as well. But again, because I'm older and it's a generational thing. I mean, you go, if this question were asked in 1985, Jordan wouldn't even have been, who would have been the best? You got to go back. So I think it's just a generational thing.
Jabbar, if you ask in 85, to me, Jabbar, Chamberlain, Russell.
See, Scott, I think
if you asked me in 1985,
yeah,
now what are those ultimate winners?
Mm-hmm.
All of them.
To me, and Scott, I think you've changed your opinion about this because you went Jordan, you went to LeBron. It sounds like you've gone back to Jordan, which
I bounced around a little bit too because
Here's my quick criteria on this. And again, we need to do a podcast about this. And Reg, I need to get your evaluation on my thinking here is this. I think the fact that we as a society put so much emphasis on the quote winning more so than we do individual talent and skills and accomplishments and longevity. I think that kind of overshadows of what someone does, because nowadays I think what you can compare in the NBA from 2010 to 2022 is completely different than what Jordan did in 92 versus 98. The NBA is completely different. The skill sets completely change. While I completely agree and value the, I'm going to, kill you on the court, the cutthroat style of play, and Jordan's the ultimate competitor and he would get in your head and, scare the living crap out of you. And LeBron isn't like that personality wise. There's something to me in what LeBron has continued to do at his skill set that Jordan never did. Yes, he didn't play, but there was still a fall off on Jordan a little bit that you have yet to really see with LeBron. And I think when it comes to that conversation, the game and the style of leagues and era has changed so much where it's hard to really penalize LeBron in that conversation where, I think if we have this conversation 10 years from now, I guarantee you the overall perception of the populace would flip to LeBron because we hadn't seen him, and then we'll see highlights and we take him for granted because he's been doing it for 20 years.
A lot of validity to that.
Yeah, I would agree.
A lot of validity, John, to what you're saying. Right. No question
and
about it.
And I think that a lot of it too is, like with baseball, for instance, when someone votes for the MVP, who was the last Major League Baseball player who won the MVP in a losing team? Andre Dawson in 1987. That'll never happen today. Remember that? It was a great player. But
fabulous player.
Yeah, it was 1986,
fabulous player,
or 87. But I mean, the whole thing
he was
is,
with the Chicago Cubs then,
right?
Was he not?
Yes, he was. He was with the Cubs. So, is greatest of all time the best player, or is it the best player who's won? So
that's right.
Just another element.
You got and to me, almost another category. 10 seconds. Can I take 10 seconds of your time here, real quick? Let's go to football. To me, the ultimate winner, the ultimate winning GOAT is Tom Brady. Is Tom Brady the most elite, skilled, talented quarterback that's ever played?
No,
I don't think so either. But
I don't think he's the greatest
fight all day
player.
if somebody's going to tell me he's right. Exactly. But is he not the ultimate greatest winner at the most important position in all of pro sports? Absolutely, no question about it. Bottom line, no question.
So Reg, real quick, who is your greatest football player of all time if you take Brady out of it?
I would, I'm definitely, I think just from we're in overtime game, now, boys. Powerful. I know Jim Brown is up there.
Okay.
Then that's, me, I'm not a homer. I'm not a homer at all. I'd put Jim Brown up there to be sure. And, Lawrence Taylor, I think, for his skill kind of changed everything about that position in the early 80s and beyond of what we know linebacking play to be in the NFL. So player, I'll go with Brown and Taylor. The ultimate unquestioned winner at the most important position in all of professional sports is Tom Brady.
And we'll end on that note. How about that, John? Is that all right?
Perfect. Love it.
Michael,
great stuff, boys.
That was great. You know what? We want to thank you for taking up you have a lot of stuff to do. And
I really don't.
Oh, yeah.
This is my downtime. I go hard, so you guys know. When college football starts,
Sure.
so late August, and then through college basketball. I've done a few college baseball games, but honestly, late August, college football begins through the end of March and the NCAA. That's this April, May, June, July. I'm down, man. No. So
we appreciate it, though. I mean, this is great. I mean, we love to get perspective, little history, and perspective for us is kind of the big thing with our podcast. But we want to thank you very much for joining us for almost an hour now, and I'm sure we'll have to call you up again when we head deeper into the season.
It's cool, but just know, I mean, I'm big admirers of both of you. You're doing the podcast is terrific. I enjoy listening to it. And both of you carrying that Fox 8 banner real strong, too, and doing great stuff and making your imprints in the market, too. So keep rolling, keep doing it. And, you guys are special. You guys are great.
We appreciate that. Very, very nice of you to say kind words. And we'll have to do this again, Scott. We have scratched the surface on the three sports and conversations that we could do with Reg. This is awesome.
You've got a lot of people, though, that you can talk to. But I really appreciate being on with you guys. A lot of fun. And, anytime, just let me know.
You got it. Michael Reghi, have a great evening. We'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely. Sabol, men. Take care.
Wow. Check that. That was fun. I mean, we really need, honestly, John, just a separate 1 hour podcast on just kind of bullet point. I know that the questions everyone talks about at the bar, right? But, who's the GOAT? All these questions. We need about an hour or two just to ask him questions to get his perspective.
We do, because, our time frame just doesn't allow it enough, because he is a wealth of knowledge on so many different things with sports, especially when you go to basketball, because when we talk about LeBron and Jordan or just basketball in general, he's witnessed a lot. He's got a lot of insight there. Of course, he has the NFL and baseball too, but man, we could go back and forth on a lot of friendly topics there on that GOAT conversation. I had to throw that in there right before we wrapped it. I had to do it.
I know you did.
Hey, it was great content, great conversation. I love, Scott, his story about LeBron when he first got in there, talking about, hey, you know what? He challenged all these guys in there. LeBron wasn't afraid to do it, and he did. It was Darius Miles, Ricky Davis type players.
I remember that. Yeah, Michael Reghi needs to write a book, by the way. I was going to tell him that. I'll get that message to him. Because, I mean, he really needs to sit down. Not that his career is over, but he's done so much. He could get great publishing here in Cleveland to say, all right, you know what, this would be something that would be in demand.
Yeah, he'll need to call Terry Pluto on that one.
Right. Yes, he would.
As anybody listens to our podcast know, we had him on about a month or so ago, right, about all the books he's done. Terry will be a good wealth of knowledge for him in terms of how to get. Yeah,
he's written like 25 of them. But yeah, it was fun. Hopefully, we'll have Michael Reghi on here again in the not too distant future. This is his downtime. He said when football season kicks in, then he's pretty much locked down. So hopefully, we'll get a chance to talk to him as we head into the heart of baseball season.
And we encourage you guys to go ahead and listen to his podcast with Kenny Roda right here on the Press Play Podcast Network. Kenny Roda has been a imprint his skills and talents here in the Cleveland market for decades in radio here. And we know Kenny, friend of show here. Those two guys do a great job over there. Scott, one of these days we got to get the Roadman on here as well.
I agree. Totally agree. Yeah. Yep. So good stuff. Looking forward to it.
Yeah. Go check them out too here on the Press Play Podcast Network. Thanks again for everyone tuning in. Remember, subscribe here on Apple, Spotify. If you're not on those platforms, go ahead and listen to us on the Press Play Podcast website. Follow us on Twitter. This pod is at Sabol Brothers. You can follow me at John_Sabol.
And me, it's Scott Sabol, FOX, the number 8.
We appreciate your listenership and subscribing, and hope you guys enjoyed this conversation today with the legendary Cleveland broadcaster, Michael Reghi. We'll see you guys next time right here on the Sabol Brothers on the Baseline Podcast, all part of the Press Play Podcast Network.